Hello and welcome to the NIFSA Open Doors Film Panel Series. I'm Professor Jeffrey Wisotsky and we're coming to you live from the studios of Bronx Community College. It's a great time to be a film student in New York State. Thanks to Governor Cuomo's highly successful production tax credit program, New York's film industry is growing and thriving. And that means production-related jobs are being created every day. Today on the program, we're talking to a distinguished panel of female filmmakers and executives who will discuss the future of women in the industry. Beside me is Simone, an award-winning producer-director and the president of New York Women in Film and Television. Next is Chapple, former executive at Sundance Channel, VH1, and Eastern, an award-winning producer specializing in nonfiction. And Duana Butler, program director at New York Women in Film and Television and producer-director. Welcome to the program. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Our film students in the audience and students watching this program online, they want to know the story of how each of you began your career into film and television. What were some of your first jobs? Simone?
Ooh, okay. Well, hello everyone. I started out, I didn't have a straight line. I kind of came at it a little bit curvy. I was in corporate communications in cable television, and one of my roles was to executive produce short videos, marketing, promotional videos, and mini documentaries about executives in the company, how the company was working in the community. So that I got the bug to go out and produce on my own. And from there, I fortuitously met a member of this organization called New York Women in Film and Television. And she introduced me to a director who was looking for a producer on a new documentary film. And that is how I initially got into producing. And that was a short film that was called Body and Soul, Diana and Kathy by Alice Elliott. And we had a PBS run, and from then on I started doing my own independent films and started my company.
Great journey.
Yeah.
Mala?
I think the idea of a wandering road is going to be a theme in this discussion because it's never really a straight line. I also didn't start, I didn't go to film school. I graduated with a very practical degree in German and philosophy and didn't know what to do, surprisingly, with that. Through some friends at the time, I met some documentary film producers, and all I could figure at the time is I just wanted to keep learning. So I thought, well, if you want to learn, you have to stay in school, so I'm going to stay in school. But when I fell into this documentary community, I realized that actually you could work and learn by making documentary films and working in documentaries, and that seemed like a golden opportunity to me. So that's what I did. I was lucky enough to find a producer to take a chance on me. I was very persuasive. I was very determined for her to hire me, and she did. And I started on that documentary series, worked my way up to being a producer after a couple of years. That was actually up in Toronto. I moved to New York in 2000, started producing with Michael Moore. Later went on to start my own company with some producers who were also working with Michael. We produced a lot of shows for Comedy Central, also Sundance Channel. So we were doing a lot of comedy and political shows at the time with Al Franken and Morgan Spurlock and all the other good liberals you can collect. And then after a couple of years, I went to try the other side of the table as an executive at the Sundance Channel. It was great to have that opportunity to see the other side of the industry. And then most recently, I've been the COO at a TV production company called Eastern that produces reality television for VH1.
I would say that I actually always knew it was going to be film. I already had a love and a passion. I always think about myself as a film buff in elementary school, so that's what I was doing, just studying film. When I applied to school, then I realized, oh, wait a second, as a young person, I can major in film. I can make films, and that was a huge shift for me. So I arrived knowing I was going to focus on film. Prior to my senior year in college, I was working on my thesis about Black cinema history. So I picked up a call. It's so funny, I think about it when I was young. I picked up the phone, called the Black Filmmakers Foundation. I found out that they existed in the city.
Hudlin.
Yes, Warrington Hudlin, of House Party fame and a number of other films. And I just told them what I was doing, and that was my immersion in the independent film scene in New York. So I went out there, did that summer. Upon graduating, I applied to an internship program, the Sybil C. Simon Multicultural Arts Administrative internship, and it landed me at Film and Video Arts, which was a seminal media arts organization in New York, and one of many nationwide in terms of supporting filmmakers with education, with classes, with community. So I landed there and ended up being there for 14 years in terms of supporting the independent film community. But also, I studied film. I learned what it was to build community in New York City and independent filmmaking. I learned to edit, I learned to shoot. I really built upon my undergraduate major, and also studied documentary filmmaking with a lot of major filmmakers, with Jennifer Fox as well, at Film Video Arts. So that for me really put me on the path to indie filmmaking, building community, documentary filmmaking, producing and directing. So for me, it's always been just a line, and here I am still, you know, working within this film world.
So I have another question for all three of you. We'll start with Simone. How have the differences between men and women manifested themselves over the course of your career?
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, we have like gender issues no matter what industry you're in. So it plays a role in kind of how we interact with people. It's just a natural part of being in the workplace. I think what I've seen most recently is just this shift of just a more sensitivity and an understanding of some of the issues that that have been kind of in our lexicon for women in our industry for so long. So there's just a little bit more of an openness, a sensitivity, and a kind of invitation for dialogue. People are a little bit more now to say, okay, maybe can you help me figure this out on, you know, why might a woman be sensitive about this, or why should I approach a male colleague this way? So it's just a little bit more of a deeper kind of connection on the issues now.
Mal?
So.
I agree. I think it's a new day today, and there's good changes that are taking place. I would say over the course of my career, what I've noticed most is that it really is a boys' club. That's changing, but you know, in the 25 years that I've worked in film and television as a woman, I found it's a very casual industry. A lot of times you're working, but you're also socializing at the same time, and the nature of that interaction feels sometimes like you're in a fraternity, and I think sometimes that puts you in a difficult role as a woman, because you know, to sort of join in, you have to fit in, you kind of have to join in, otherwise you're apart. So that I felt as a tension.
Yeah, I would actually just build on what they have said. I think that clearly these gender inequalities, pay inequalities, this has been existing throughout the industry. I think what's really amazing is this, you know, this period that we're in right now, which has really increased the awareness of it, you know, as Mala said, the sensitivities to it. I would say in my own career, as I look back, I've actually worked with so many wonderful women in the industry. So I think it also depends on what pockets you're working in. You know, when you're working in documentaries, when you're working on independent film, you have a different kind of control of the teams and your tribe, so to speak. But I think what's really important is the conversation that's happening now is helping men and women to rewrite. What are those rules? What are the ground rules? You know, there's a heightened focus, which has happened at different periods, about diversity in front of, but also behind the camera. So I think if anything, the awareness, the cultural shift, the rewriting of what we're doing here in this industry is really important.
Can I add one thing
Yes,
to what
absolutely.
Duana said? That I think that's a difference, as you said, sort of across different industries, indie film, documentaries, feature films. Those are all very different cultures, so I think you have different experiences between genders. I also think where you are in the crew or what your position is also makes a very big difference. I think that, you know, I've been a producer, an executive producer, and I think that that's been easier in some ways. I think if I were a director or if I was a DP as a woman, you know, working on a crew, that I think there are more challenges there.
Simone, this is, we'll start with you, but this is for everyone. What is the best advice that you have received as a woman in the industry to navigate your career? What was the best advice you received?
I don't know if I got advice specifically because I'm a woman. I got advice to be, to have success in my career and my livelihood, right? And so, you know, I think the best advice is to, it's so funny because I think my mentors, they probably didn't even know they were my mentors. And whether they were women or men, they were showing by example. And what I always saw was that the opportunity, it was to look at the opportunities that can be at your reach, and kind of keep looking at where you can go next. But you kind of focus on what you're doing, but don't get stuck, is the point I'm trying to make. Is like, don't get stuck for too long in where you are, but keep looking, okay, what's next? What, maybe in 3-4 years, where do you want to see yourself in the industry, or which avenue do you want to go to? So it was always kind of focusing on that.
Yeah, have a plan.
Yeah, have a plan.
I also don't think I had any specific, gender-based advice, but I think some of the best advice that I got when I was starting was just to check your ego at the door, and to be very open, and to understand that, whether you went to film school or you didn't go to film school, or you just won an award at Sundance or you didn't, everybody's kind of starting out in the same place. And just be open-minded about that, and not to have any attitude about it. Go in with a good attitude, go in without ego, work hard, find people you like to work with on projects you like to work with, and success will come.
Duana?
I would say, just in terms of mentorship, and I agree also like what Simone said and Mala said, I wouldn't say that I had one specific mentor, one specific advice. For me, it really was coming up with a community of women and men that I would find myself as I was on my journey in the company of like amazing, filmmakers and such. And what I took from their work and their discipline and their journey was really a focus on developing craft, developing the discipline, focusing on the work of the storytelling. And when you're really focused and passionate about that, that really kind of drives you through whatever obstacles, whatever comes up against you, against whatever naysayers come, I always would see people who are really fierce and this is the goal, this is the story we're telling, and by any means necessary, we're getting this done. And I really take from that kind of energy. So I've met a lot of folks who are really forceful in terms of pursuing and getting a number of people around them to pursue to the finish line. So that for me is just really kind of seeing modeled behavior,
Simone, you worked on a film last year called A Woman Apart by Elizabeth Serban, an experimental video artist in her first narrative directorial debut. It's been described as a feminist film about a burnt-out actress who wants to escape a sexist Hollywood. Can you share about your role on the film and what drew you to this project?
Well, that statement right there tells you a little bit about the film. So this was a really interesting project that came my way, where it was a narrative film, but it had an opportunity to talk about issues that I care about in terms of women's advancement and issues that have been near and dear to me in my career. And it's, really quick snapshot, it's a narrative film about a famous TV actress who is kind of fed up with Hollywood. She's getting scripts that are unfulfilling and just kind of not moving kind of where she wants to go creatively. She hits a block and says, I'm moving back to New York, and I'm going to reconnect with my theater friends and work on independent film. So it's a beautiful film, unbelievably acted, Maggie Siff and Cara Seymour and John Ortiz, but it was really about looking at how women actresses are, what they traditionally have been hit up against in terms of roles, and then historically and statistically, we have also seen these issues come to life. And Elizabeth she's an experimental video artist, and this was her first narrative film. So she's been a seasoned professional, and this was going to be her first kind of breakout film. And so all of those reasons, and she hired over 50% crew that were women. There were just so many kind of boxes that for me to be passionate about a film to work on was one of the big reasons that drew me. So long story short, so I came on board when the film was done, basically, and I was going to handle the marketing and distribution of the film, and she had a distributor on board that was going to do this 1-week run in an art house in New York and maybe LA. And you know, what we worked on was really about galvanizing audiences. And that's kind of what my company does, is really looking at how does this story impact different people or communities that might be interested in seeing the film. And this was a low-budget film, and you know, the trajectory for low-budget films right now is to stay in a film or a theater more than opening weekend is very challenging. And we were able to, we worked with NIWIFT, we worked with community groups, we worked with the press on really kind of looking at the film from this broader perspective of what's happening in the world in terms of gender, and this was a microcosm of gender in entertainment and Hollywood. So we were able to get the film picked up for several weeks after that, and then now it's on Showtime. So it was a really great kind of case study in how a small indie film could actually really gain an audience and then have all these different layers to it.
And we're going to see a clip.
And we will
We're going to see a clip from a woman, a part, and let's roll tape.
It is like a drug, you know. Boundaries start to blur. You can see and feel things you didn't even know were there. And when you can't feel it,
I wanted to be an actor. That's what I wanted. I don't know how to do anything else.
You have a brilliant, Emmy award-winning actress.
Yes, we get it. She's a workaholic. She has no personal life. She's not a real person. She's like a profession.
I'm sure you can find something in her you can relate to.
Everybody phones it in sooner or later. It's normal. Bottom line is, you're contractually bound. That can mean no work for the next 5 years. What are you gonna do with yourself, huh?
History, reflection, reunion.
You remember the first week of previews?
Why are you here?
We've moved on with our lives. Maybe it's better. For me, it isn't. Anna doesn't seem like herself. Have you shown her this?
It's just a little side project.
This dark-haired Jewish girl from Connecticut who's intense and neurotic and suicidal. You wanted to leave. Our show was just a stepping stone for you.
I'm so tired of pretending to be other people. What happened with us?
If I would have come any closer, you would have been out the door.
No, I don't want to play her. I don't want to play a part. I don't want to play any.
Okay, here we come. Very nice. And again, you can watch A Woman Apart on Showtime on demand. And I believe, Stephen, we have a question that's coming in. Please tell us the name of the student and what school. And this is our first virtual question. Yeah. And if you can read the question from your iPad, thank you.
Katrina from Oswego asks, as a student filmmaker, can I join New York Women in Film and Television? And if not, what qualifications do I need to join?
Speak to that. New York Women in Film and Television, our membership is 2,200 members and counting. As a requirement for membership, you have to have 4 years of experience. However, if you have less than that, we do have a Next Wave program, so it's important to check our website and inquire about that. Yeah, so that's pretty much what it is. But the Next Wave program would be for folks looking for membership under 4 years.
So this is for everyone. What else is unique about the state of the business today, and where do you think the opportunities lie for the future? And Simone, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, I think there's a ton of opportunity, and it's really about all of the different platforms that you can create your content on now, right? So you don't have to just be beholden that it has to get into a theater or your work will never be seen, right? So it's really that opportunity, whether it's online with digital media platforms, TV, on your mobile devices. I mean, there's so many places for you to get your content out there now. I think that's one of the most exciting. And I also teach in film, and I can't tell you how many, there's just so much energy around story, visual story, and whether you are a graphic designer, whether you want to do animation, or kind of the traditional writing a script, getting it into, or a stage performance. I mean, there's just so much energy I see around still being able to have a voice, creatively telling a story, and executing it with some artistic medium. So that's exciting for me to see.
Mala?
Yeah, I think what Simone said about the changes in distribution are really exciting. That you can basically make your own film now for very little money and throw it up and get people to see it, which wasn't the case when I was starting out. You weren't going to have your own Betacam camera.
No, you were not.
You were not.
No.
And it on Betamax and Digibase. It was too expensive. It wasn't going to happen, and to get people to see it, even if you wanted to distribute on VHS, it was a very expensive process. And the fact that you guys, technology has now allowed you to basically shoot a whole movie on your iPhone and go home and cut it on Final Cut, and you can put it on YouTube. I think that is very liberating and exciting, and gives you all a lot of opportunity to get your voices out there and to get them seen and heard. So I think the technology, and I think, as Simone said, the means of distribution is exciting, and I think that creatively it's an exciting time for different kinds of voices. I think people want to hear those stories of people from diverse backgrounds and women, and I think now more than ever there's an opportunity for that range.
Duana?
Yes, I would add that with the diversity of distribution of different platforms, really the democratization of the means of production is really important, significantly because you have to develop your craft. You need to practice making stories. That's what really makes for longevity, in one's career. And so before, as Mala said, like, the equipment was big, the equipment was expensive. How are you going to get one piece out, let alone 2 or 3 or 4? And that is a piece in terms of advancing one's, craft. So that makes it really exciting, so that people can really practice their storytelling, and this heightened, escalating conversation about diversity of opportunities for folks of diverse backgrounds, for women. People are having to really recognize this and break out of old modes of thinking, and that's going to really bode well, because basically now there's a demand, get me that next woman filmmaker, get me that next person to provide a diverse voice. And it's really a mandate where people have, the bottom line is at risk right now. So that creates opportunity. So that balance with really practicing and getting excellent, you have to be ready when the door knocks, when people are looking for people to fill these spaces. So
I just want to add, one of our female filmmakers this weekend is a finalist at the Rutgers U.S. Film and Video Festival. Film Club members and myself will be attending. And Tiana Bogan won first prize in our annual film festival last year. And this is our 25th anniversary that we'll be celebrating in June, and I hope you all come.
Yes.
And this audience, these are probably some of the best Bronx storytellers you'll ever meet.
There we go.
They know how to tell a story.
Yes.
And
Awesome.
I'm hoping that you'll get a chance to
yes,
see
because we
their
get that
films.
call. I would say, especially over the last several months with all of the kind of heightened energy and activism and advocacy, NYWIF gets calls all the time now, like, I need a producer, I need an editor. Right. And the thing is, we need to know that we have a roster of, here are our top folks that we can send out and refer. And so now people just really have to be ready to activate, to have their reels together, to be able to answer the call. Because now that the doors are cracking open more, so we have to be ready to come right through it and take our space.
Well, Bronx Community College will be on the top of your
Excellent.
radar.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for the next clip, and we're going to be seeing a scene from the Sundance Channel series Brick City. And it's starring former mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Cory Booker. Mala, can you tell us a little about your experience working on this project?
So this project's a couple of years old. It's 2010 or so, but I wanted to show this clip for a couple of reasons. as we were talking about changes in the industry today, you know, it reminded me of some of the things that we had in mind when that series was coming out, and like the word that comes to mind is disruption. You know, it was a time of disruption. This is another time of disruption, and that's always an exciting time for artists. And so with Brick City, I was an executive of the Sundance Channel at the time, which meant I was a buyer, and I was, you know, working very closely with the filmmakers to bring their visions to life. And this team of filmmakers came in, Mark Levin and Mark Benjamin, who are fantastic documentary filmmakers, and they had basically the keys to Newark City Hall, and they wanted to tell this story. You know, this is before Obama was in office. Remember, it was about a year before Obama was in office, and they said, we have the keys to City Hall. Cory Booker's agreed to sign on to do this documentary project, and we want to follow him, the chief of police, and a woman who was a former gang member in Newark. And they've all given us carte blanche to just follow them around for a year. And we said, done, you know, done. So it was the quickest sale, quickest thing we ever bought. And it was an amazing process. You know, it was an exciting time, just, you know, politically. Also, you know, in the industry at that time, reality television was really gaining prominence. So it was an interesting time creatively to be trying to tell a story in a different way. And this was like the realest kind of reality TV that you could possibly tell, because you've got 3 people who have just agreed to let you follow them around for real for an entire year. So it was really very thrilling to do that. And we had a lot of young filmmakers. The directors are a great company for cultivating young talent. And they basically had a bunch of teams of young filmmakers who were just out in Newark, completely embedded, who would just follow everybody around, you know, 24/7 to do this. So it was a great project. As the cuts started coming in, they showed us the first rough cut, and they said, here's the rough cut. We don't have any interview in here yet, and we don't have any voiceover. So I watched the rough cut, and I went to my bosses and I said, we can't add any interviews or put any voiceover on this. We have to just have to let them cut it and show it the way it is, which is, you know, a bold move for a TV network to do. Luckily, the folks at Sundance Channel were willing to take that risk, and as a result, we didn't do that, and it really came out like, you know, a verite, close to a verite film could be on television channel, and it was a really exciting project. So if you haven't seen it, you can see it online, but I hope you like this clip.
Okay, we're about to see a clip now from the Sundance Channel series, Brick City.
It's so important that we're here today, that we stare into the long face of history. What will never be forgotten is what happened here 40 years ago.
Race riots broke out. Millions of dollars in property damages. Arson was widespread. 30 killed.
We have work to do, Newark. We have a city to build and rebuild.
To stop the violence on the streets of Newark.
The triple murder of 3 of Newark's brightest, all college students home to the culture of crime in their community.
I had just gotten word of another murder in the city. People were saying things were my fault.
You don't see Livingston flooded with guns.
You caused this problem. Okay. I'm telling you now, he caused the problem.
The city is on fire. It's saturated with death.
In a morbid kind of way, I started jogging by all the sites I knew where murders happened. And I was just weeping and running. I just wonder, where the hell am I?
Okay, so
2009.
Brick City on the Sundance Channel and on demand? Okay, on demand.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to take another question, another virtual question that's coming in from another college. Stephen, the next question.
So this question is from James from Ithaca, and he asks that Black Panther ruled the box office last weekend. He wants to know if Black Panther's success will widen the mainstream gate for filmmakers of more diverse backgrounds.
I could take that question. I think
And you
that,
saw Black Panther this
yes, I
week.
saw it Saturday night. I had to get in there the first box office weekend. There was joy across the board in terms of audiences, even to the point that I was on a train leaving, just had a random popcorn bag, and someone asked me, did you go to Black Panther? How is it? What I would say is that time's going to tell on that question. I think that it's an important cultural moment. I think it's going to continue to rule at the box office. But the key is, obviously, the talent is there for in front of the scenes. There are Black filmmakers making work about our stories that have universal messages. The question is, where's the diversity in the executive offices, in the tastemakers, in the gatekeepers, and that's where the pressure has to be. Because sometimes, even though the money in the box office is there, and we have a historical record of films of diverse voices that break box office records, but the pressure has to be in people who understand these stories, understand the culture, or just are open-minded enough to understand that we have to have diverse voices. So I think that this is going to be a major moment. We just have to keep the pressure on, because the audiences are there.
Right.
The talent is there, but people who are giving the green light have to feel like this is a story that they feel invested in, because people are going to make stories about things that they know.
And I would say, I totally agree. And I think it's a piece of the puzzle, right? So it's, our industry we value based on box office numbers, right? But what Duana, I totally agree with, is this is also an opportunity for systemic and structural change on how we are addressing these issues of bias and discrimination in our society, in our industry particularly. So I think it's exciting for Black Panthers, just like it was exciting for Hidden Figures last year. It was exciting for so many, Frozen. So there's,
which made money. Those films made money.
Exactly. So I think it's like, great, it's yes. Okay, let's just now let's take the ball and run with it to do more with it. So I think
it's a great discussion. Last night we judged the Panasonic Hit Witness News Awards, and Bill Strauss was one of the executive producers of Straight Outta Compton, and he was telling the students in a Skype call that, wow, he says, I didn't think it would overtake our budget from 2 years ago. We they made $200 million that whole summer, and they made it in 2 days. So this leads us to the last clip for the show, and this is going to be from New York Women in Film and TV's Women's Film Preservation Fund. Yes. Duana, can you tell us a little bit about this film before we roll the clip?
Yes, so NYWIF has many programs. One of what I feel is a very important program, very special program, is the Women's Film Preservation Fund. And what that is this was a fund that was founded in 1995 with the Museum of Modern Art, provides financial and post-production support to preserve women's films. Now, this is the only program of its kind globally, and what that really means is women's films getting preserved where women have a main role on the production, but also it's about preserving our cultural legacy in film. Like, if we don't preserve our films, again, this goes back to who is the gatekeeper, whose story is being told. Women have an investment to preserve our films, otherwise they are going to disappear. We know this with film preservation, it's very important. So, and also not only that, we present the films that we have been preserving. So for example, we have an ongoing series with Union Docs in Brooklyn. This Sunday we're showing one of our legacy films that we preserved, Barbara Koppel's Academy Award winning Harlan County. She's gonna be there Sunday, 7:30 p.m., Union Docs, be there. But what that means is, highlighting our history, which is really important. So what you're gonna see in this clip is a minute clip, which really shows the breadth of work that we preserve. It's films from the pioneering age of cinema, it's animation, it's experimental, it's documentary, it's features. So with that said, I would say this is a very important program.
Okay, and again, this is Women's Film Preservation Fund, and we can roll the clip whenever you're ready. great.
I would add to that, like we're really having conversations about our present and our future, but the historical legacy is really important, and I would advise filmmakers, because we don't think about this. We have to grind, we have to hustle, we have to find the money, get the crew, get these films completed, but we also have to pay attention to preserving our assets, our films, providing within our budgets a way to maintain our films so that in future generations people still have access to it, because you know the films deteriorate as well as the digital content. So with that said, I think it's really important for makers or artists across the board to find ways to preserve their films so the next generations can have access to them.
I think it's wonderful what you're doing. And I remember when I was a film student at the Picker Film Institute at City College, Dawn Pennybaker, D.A. Pennybaker, brought up Barbara Coppola while they were making the film. She was telling us about, you know, how difficult it was to be in Harlan County and how they got shot at. But I remember seeing a pristine 16mm film. So
and we preserved their 16mm film.
Great.
And Barbara Coppola says, like, if it wasn't for this fund and this support, the film, the colors were deteriorating. The film was deteriorating. We wouldn't have an opportunity to see it, like on Sunday or anywhere. And that's really important to consider, because we're not just making films for the moment. We're making films to last, you know, for time.
No, I think it's wonderful. And by the way, I know at the time DuArt Film Labs was their lab at the time, and the work that Irwin Young was doing with Barbara and all the other filmmakers was just extraordinary. So, Duana, how does someone, I know we talked about how they become a member, but is there a student membership or
Well, yeah, I can speak more about that. So again, like we have 2,200 members and counting. The benefits you get from membership is access to this amazing community, education, networking opportunities. We have like a job board. You can have your information in our database. And again, it's for individuals applying for consideration. You have to have 4 years or plus for experience, but also if you have less than that, there's a percentage of our membership that we call the Next Wave members. So there's more information about that online at nywift.org, where you could see what, you know, inquire about that and see, because it's important for us to not only maintain our membership of experienced women in the industry at many different levels, in different areas in the industry, but also to nurture and provide an opportunity for the next generation coming in to engage. There's many different levels of membership, so definitely look online to see what those different levels and pricing are. But there is space for you know, new members coming in, and it's women, and we do have men. We have male members as well. You know, it's just important to have a diverse community on the flip side of it. So I would say yes, look into Next Wave membership and look on our site to get more information.
Simone, as president of New York Women in Film and Television, can you tell us about New York Women in Film and Television's mission and a little bit more about the history?
Sure. I mean, as we see with the film preservation, you know, NYWIFT has we're 40 years old this year. Wow. I haven't been there that long. But you know, this was formed, NYWIFT was formed 40 years ago to really look at providing a community, right? So a community, a voice, educational resources, and recognition for women and their achievements in the industry. And while, you know, some of the issues have changed over the history from 1977, when we came together on the night of, there was a New York City blackout in 1977.
I remember that.
Where about 4 or 5 women, I think it was, got together and really started writing the format of what this organization would be. And that it would be a voice to the entertainment community about the issues that women were facing in the industry. And so with that, I think what I was saying is that while some of the issues may have changed, I mean, we've made a tremendous amount of progress. Just the fact that there's so many women in all different areas of the industry right now is pretty exciting and extraordinary. But now there's still this plateau statistically of women getting into what we call the above the line positions, whether it's writer, director, cinematographer, heads of department. It's really about supporting women to be in leadership roles on set, in executive positions in the entertainment industry, or just helping you hone your craft, whether you want to be a costume designer or a set designer or a gaffer. So it's really about kind of helping support what you want to do. And the other big piece that we're very engaged in right now is advocacy. So advocacy around job opportunity, pay equity is another large issue that's happening in our industry, and also safety in the workplace related to sexual harassment and other kind of, we're really about trying to make these environments on set, in front of the camera, behind the camera, just a more kind of equitable place to be.
We're going to take some questions from our studio audience.
Great.
And raise your hand, make sure that you say your first name and your last name. Yes, we have a question. Yes. Go ahead, Jeannie. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jenny Gilbert, and my question is...
Nice and loud. We're going to give you the microphone. I'm sorry.
Hi,
There you go. Did it turn green? Yes.
Hi, my name is Jenny Gilbert, and my question is, can a woman have a family and still be financially successful in this business?
Okay, can a woman have a family and still be financially successful in this business?
I would respond. I think that everyone is juggling. Men, women, everybody seems, even children, everyone seems to be juggling a lot. I think that it's challenging from what I know from mothers that I know who are filmmakers. I just think that from what I've heard as well, that it's important that sometimes a ball might drop here or there, but you just got to keep moving. There are mothers who make amazing work. You know, they find a way. They have a support network, extended family, they have friends, and they come together. So anything is possible.
And I would just add on that too, I'm also working on a Gender in Hollywood film right now, and there is a movement to provide childcare on set. We have the
Moms Network.
Moms Network.
Yes, a support network. Yes.
Support network. I'm seeing at film festivals many more people, and again, women and men bringing their children to the festivals.
Yes.
So I mean, I think the opportunities again are opening a little bit more.
And the awareness,
yeah,
the sensitivity.
But it's still challenging to balance work and family, no matter whether you're woman or man, and no matter what industry. So
Yes, it is always a juggle. I have a 14-year-old daughter, so she kind of came halfway, midway through my career, and it's really tough. And I think, as Duana said, it's always tough when you're a working mom. I think the film industry, depending on what side of it you're on, the hours can be really tough. Like if you're on set, that's really tough. Can you do it? Absolutely, as long as you have the right support around you.
Do we have another question from the studio audience? Yes, please say your name, nice and loud, and what's your question?
My name is Frank DiRuggiero. As people who have done work in documentaries, can you elaborate on the role and current outlook for documentaries in today's film culture?
I think it's really bright. I think that it's the most exciting time for documentaries that I've seen in the last 20 years. I think that audiences are showing that they want that content, and I think that buyers are showing that they want to invest in that, especially with some of the new players like Netflix and see what Apple does. I think there's money out there, so it's a very good time for documentaries.
And I would just add on too, it's just amazing, again, back to the different distribution platforms. There used to be a time that you had to just search out where to see films, see documentaries. Now there's so many platforms, whether, again, it's like Netflix or, Amazon or like all these different platforms. The Sundance has its, doc platform. There's so many places that you could see films, which again is really important because it's about developing audiences that have the appetite for it, which generates more production of it, and also it's amazing for filmmakers to create a living for themselves and continue to work on their craft. So it's a great time for it.
Simone, I want to talk a little bit about For Impact Productions. What type of work and projects? I know you just alluded a little bit to your project, but what type of work and projects are your focus of your company?
Yeah. So when I started my career, I was in public policy and social advocacy. And so before jumping into the television and corporate world, I really always had that love and drive for how do we make an impact socially with stories and storytelling. And so I started, I formed For Impact Productions to kind of marry the two, whether where you look at, you create your film, you create your piece of content, but then how do you get it out into the world, and what are you saying to the world about your film, right? And not every piece of content has to have a social issue component, but I tend to take on projects and films that really look at a broader perspective of what their piece of art can do for our larger discussions culturally and socially, economically, politically. So that's the genesis of For Impact Productions. And now I'm seeing that there's many more opportunities even for narrative and feature film to also have that kind of impact. I had a film just come out at Sundance Film Festival called The Tale, and which will be on HBO, and we were creating a whole outreach and educational impact campaign around the mission of or around the story of the film. So these are kind of the little intricacies that I've been really interested in pulling together for Impact.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And if you'd like any interns, we have several
yes,
students.
I do actually need a couple
Okay,
interns.
we'll talk after the
And
show.
assistants
So this is
too.
for everyone, and we'll start with Duana. What advice would you give to a young woman entering the business, especially students that are going to a 4-year school to get a
Yes.
bachelor's degree in film and TV?
Well, what I would say is, first off, really tune into what your passion is. I find myself mentoring a number of young filmmakers, whether through NIWIF, through our internship program, or just in life in general. And I often say, what are you focused on? What is your line? So to get a sense of, are you interested in producing? Are you interested in editing? Are you interested, what aspect of it? And then after that, once you have a real passion, because when you're focused on working on a project, it's going to take a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of sacrifices. You have to really be passionate about it to get through that. So I would say tune into what your passion is. And again, I can't say it enough. We could talk about all of these issues of advocacy and what's going on in the culture and box office. If you're not strong and excellent at your craft, when the call comes, you're not ready for it. So I would say tune into your passion, practice your craft, and thirdly, build your tribe, your squad, your community, because the people you're studying with here in school are going to be your partners throughout your life and throughout your career. Whenever you see successful filmmakers discuss, who are on their team when they're on the stage getting the awards and such, it's who they were in the edit room back in undergrad that they were working with. It's that producing partner that they were in grad school with, that they have taken the journey over the decades. So identify who your community is that's going to support you on so many levels I can't even explain. If you're not sure, that's another thing about what you want to do in the field, but I will tell you the ones who I know are really successful are very clear. It doesn't matter how young they are. This is what I want to focus on, and they have a laser-like focus, they have hustle, and they know how to get it. So really kind of think about that and really be clear about what you want to do, because that's what's going to drive you through all of these challenges and obstacles and people saying you can't do it and no money. That's what's going to get you through with a great tribe.
And Mala, I want to continue that question. What advice would you give to a young man entering the business, and in terms of working with women?
Okay. Well, I would say, obviously, everybody's hearing what's going on in the news. So I think, be extra aware and sensitive about your behavior. If you're talking to other people on the crew, like I said, it can become a real boys club. So I think it's good to kind of have that awareness and have your antenna up. How would you treat your sister or your mother or some other female that's important in your life? Just be extra conscious of your behavior and what you're putting out there on set. And also what you're putting out there in your content. What are your depictions of women looking like? I think there are a lot of initiatives that we've been talking about. NIWIF does, the DGA, the PGA. There are a lot of different guidelines and initiatives that are out there right now, and the awareness, just so filmmakers, as they're developing content, can be aware of their actions as they're creating and while they're in production.
We're going to take one more question from the studio audience. So raise your hand if you have a question. Yes, sir. Tell us your name, and please tell us your question, nice and loud.
My name is Ben Morganti, Purchase College graduate, 2017.
What college?
Purchase College.
Purchase, okay.
My question is, well, Wonder Woman was one of the most influential and inspirational films of 2017, and yet it was the film that was snubbed at the Oscars. So my question is, while films like Logan are breaking through barriers, getting an adapted screenplay nomination, what maybe needs to happen for films like this to break through those barriers?
Excellent question. Who'd like to?
question.
I mean, I think it goes back to the audience is there. They already voted yes on this film, men and women. But you have to remember that there's there's politics and there's the voting block at the Academy. So who's voting on that? Who, after all is said and done, feels like this film represents their stories, their culture, their image? So I think that there's a lot of work has been going on the last couple of years to diversify the voting blocks in all the different areas within the Academy, but that's where that comes. The Academy is very political, so a lot of times the best creative artistic creation may not necessarily get recognized. If you look at the history of major directors globally who have never even got a nomination, that should let you know where that's at. So I would always say, like, I love the Academy Awards, I love watching what gets touted and such, but you have to be aware of also of the politics. So the work that's been going on the last couple of years has to continue in order to diversify, again, the gatekeepers with the voting. Because people vote for what they know, what they feel represents. And I think across the board with women and men, we really have to recognize other stories, other voices, because a lot of these other groups who haven't had a platform, we've had to ingest the same stories over and over and over again. So we can see beyond our experiences, and other people have to see that. But we all know that Wonder Woman was an amazing film. And that's really what it is. Again, there's a lot of work to be done behind the scenes on that level.
Well, we have time for one more question. And I know you talked earlier about, Simone, that some of your mentors didn't even know they were your mentors, but let's go back to that. Did you all have mentors throughout your career? And what mentorship opportunities exist for young women now? And we're going to start with Simone.
Oh. I have to name my mentors.
We want to find out who those people were.
Yeah, I mean, I have always had a mentor, and whether it was either a boss that I had that I actually approached. So that's another piece of maybe advice, is that if there's someone, and it doesn't necessarily have to be someone you're reporting to, maybe it's a colleague, that you're kind of taking agency and control over what you want to do in your future, right? And so you kind of look for people that, this person, male or female, doesn't matter. This person is actually doing something that I might want to do one day, right? And so I would approach people and say, hey, you have some time to talk about, I want to go in this direction, right? So, and then I still have mentors every day. I mean, I'm continually meeting people that just wow me and impress me. I teach, like I said, with Stony Brook University and the Killer Films, and I co-teach with Christine Vachon and Pamela Koffler, who are like, the independent film powerhouses, and they probably don't even know that they're my mentors, but I learn a ton from them as well in terms of the independent film market, which is something new that I've been going into. So, so yeah, I would say ask for mentorship or advice.
Mala?
Yeah, I think people are quite willing to mentor, and they understand that in this industry it's important to mentor. I think that your job is to seek out those people who you have a specific reason to want them as your mentor, and let them know what that is, and give them that opportunity, because a lot of times, we get asked a lot of different things, but I find that when somebody's coming to me in a targeted and specific way, and I can tell that there's some unique way that I can help them, and I'm much more likely to do that. So I think that even outside of the formal internship programs that exist, if there are just people in the industry or people who you come across that you think would be useful mentors or people you respect, you should pursue those contacts, and I think you'll find that people are quite willing to help you.
Yes, I would agree too. Again, a lot of people in the industry, they're very open to helping, to supporting. What I would add to that, and I find this when I am mentoring other folks coming up, it's good to be clear about what it is that you're looking for. Because when they have a small window of time to support, be clear about this is the role I'm looking into, how can you help me with that, and feel free to open up. And I would just say just being in the space and the time. So it's be good to have opportunities and seek them out, as they happen, which is what happened for me. Again, I don't have mentors specifically, but it pretty much was just being around a lot of different film productions and such, and just kind of organically watching and observing and listening.
Yes.
Well, our time has come to an end. And we'd like to thank our distinguished panelists for taking the time to talk to us today, and what an insightful conversation. I'd also like to thank the New York Governor's Office of Motion Picture and Television Development, the New York Production Alliance, the New York Film and Television Student Alliance, and our TV crew from the Media and Digital Film Club here at Bronx Community College. See you next time on Open Doors.
Yay!